So in this property we have a couple of relatively minor issues. One is the salt crystallizing behind paint. This is calcium sulfate salt. There is dampness at the base of this wall. There's also mold growing along the rim between the skirting board and wall. The problem is excess vapor made worse by heat loss, and we can see here the radiator pipe in winter. In summertime, or when the radiator hasn't been used for some time, there will be heat loss here because the water in the radiator travels under the subfloor, pulling heat out from the warmer room into the colder subfloor. This heat loss increases the risk of condensation and mold. The solution comes from increased ventilation and dehumidification. However, insulation is relatively difficult in this case, but if you don't want to properly ventilate, what you can do is reduce the absorption of moisture at the floor wall junction. In this case, the floor is acting as a solid floor, is tiled, so there's vulnerability where the impermeable surface of the flooring is amplifying condensation into the absorbent wall. So using a thixotropic cream such as siloxane will reduce the absorption. This won't improve the mold, but it will reduce the amount of moisture at the base of the wall. One of the interests in this case is that there's mold growing on top of the silicon above the skirting board. Mold is inhibited by hygroscopic salts in groundwater. Rising damp could not be the cause of dampness in this case. When there's mold, there's a clear sign of high excess humidity, as well as some heat loss.
So those are calcium sulfate salts, and this is an impermeable surface, and you have a risk of condensation forming on it and going up. If you take the skirting board off and put a siloxane cream, thixotropic cream, like Dry Zone, I think is the brand name, and it will just reduce the absorption if you continue to have condensation. Obviously the root cause is condensation, but it will just reduce the absorption, and it's very inexpensive. You can just buy it from Amazon.
Okay.
It costs about £10 or £20. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head. It might be a bit more than that. But it's it'll only, I mean, you'll just have to take, this will unscrew and just cut it back by 10 mil and run a bead of this along. It's a bit like silicone that you use in a bath room, that sort of thing. Very, very easy to do. Oh, it's interesting. So I don't know if you've seen here, there's a hot water pipe there.
Oh, is it there?
It's your heating system.
Yeah, it must run to the...
So
I don't
what
know why it goes that way.
Yeah.
you wouldn't necessarily stand there.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh yeah,
The kitchen, the sink used to be here.
there.
Then they built this extension before we, moved in. And then, you've got the bathroom then, all the way, like a second bathroom and toilet, just around the corner. There you go.
so what happens is the hot water pipe when the heating, sorry, this is the heating system rather than the hot water, I imagine. But when the heating isn't in use, it gets cold because it loses heat, because it's cold water it's water that's being drawn around, and it will go, and it's probably going in underneath your floorboard. So if we look here, there it is. It's going underneath the floor, and it's going to draw the heat out of the floor, the subfloor, and create a zone of cold along there. So that's actually probably the primary cause, but the solution will be from reducing vapor, and as a backup solution it will be to use the absorption reducing chemical.
On the other side of the wall there is heat loss from a subfloor vent. I should correct myself, the primary cause is always excess vapor. If you bring the internal vapor levels down as measured by dew point, if you bring the dew point down to the temperature of the outside, then you won't have a risk of condensation, and the risk of mold is negligible.
You see, you got dampness, so it's showing 90%. So what you do is you just you have to put it onto the right setting,
Yeah.
and then if you, for instance, go there and mark it, and then once a week put it in the same place and just see how the wall's drying out.
Yeah. Okay.
This is to reduce the risk of mould, because you've got insulation in there, and you've just got ordinary, probably packing from Amazon or something.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Like,
It just stops the airflow, and it's just insulation. So it's a very simple way of reducing the risk of mould.
In summary, and sorry to use this graphic, but the heating system is drawing heat out of the wall when the radiator isn't in use. This is particularly true during a cold summer, as we had in August this year, and during spring and autumn, when the heating tends not to be used during the day, but at night it can become very cold.